Hey everyone, this is Theo, your boy Theo, and on the line I have Mr. Benja, and we are Show versus Business. This is your weekly podcast talking about all things pop culture and business and how it all intersects together. Hey Mr. Benja, how you doing today?
Man, I am doing good. It's 2020 is coming to an end, and I don't know if 2021 is going to be better, but I'm good to wrap this up and think about the new year, man.
Yeah, I think everybody's putting a big old middle finger to 2020 right now, so I get it. 2020 sucked, but like I said, you just gotta live in the moment. So I think I'm ready to go too. I mean, did you do anything interesting for the holiday? Anything fun?
I pretty much kind of skate through Christmas and New Year. Um, I mean, not Christmas, New Year, but Christmas Eve and Christmas, and I'm always thinking about the New Year. So there's a lot of opportunity that really happened in 2020, just because everything happened, that forces a change. So this year was really important for me to just sit down and kind of, eat some gingerbread cookies and meditate, for about, 2 days, being Christmas Eve and Christmas. Think about
I just
2020.
I just imagine you like with your legs crossed, in the meditation pose, with a nice little plate of gingerbread cookies on the side right there as you start to float away. No, I get it. That's the way to go. So no, mine was a little bit more chaotic. Got to have two young ones in the house, so I was up to 3 in the morning. Trying to build some stuff, and then
Oh yeah,
got woken up at 6 a.m. So literally, I had no sleep, and then spent the rest of the day putting in batteries, setting it up,
I love
teaching them
it.
how to play with it. So not as relaxing, unfortunately, but definitely blessed. So
That's great,
yeah,
man. I love it.
but yeah, glad to move on to next year. Also, starting to reflect now as we get ready to 2021. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about what happened in 2020. I think there was a lot of things that happened. I mean, in pop culture world and the business world. So maybe we'll start. Probably near the top. I mean, I think the Mandalorian premiered maybe December 2019, right? But I think it was still going on in the early part of 2020.
Hmm.
But that was huge. I mean, that basically gave us our Star Wars fix. I mean, for 2020, what do you think?
Yeah, 2020. Wait, I don't think anybody expected, the Mandalorian to do what it did for Disney, and they're running with it. They started Mando Mondays, where they release all types of new information, new products and stuff. So it was big, man.
Yeah, they did a great job. I mean, especially the second season. First season, I think they were kind of playing around with the format. It was kind of like story of the week kind of format. But the second season, they started to make it more serialized, and I think that just got everybody just hyped up. So this, yeah, I think bravo to Disney once again. Hitting out the park. I mean, you can't say enough to them. And so, moving on, I think the other thing was that Disney, hey, it's a streaming world, baby. We just live in it.
Yeah, I was gonna I wanted to know from you, like, with all of the uh all of the other things they've got going on, especially the theme parks, how big of a move was this for the industry, for such a big company like Disney to say, guess what? We're going full in on streaming. Um,
Oh man, it was huge for them. I mean, I think when you kind of look at the numbers, they lost, roughly about 40% of their business when it comes to like the parks and experiences and the carnival lines and all that. And so for them to say, hey, and I don't know if you know about this, but basically this is acquisition. They acquired this technology from I think it was like an MLB network or something like that, some kind of small little video provider
hmm,
years ago. Bob
yeah.
Iger made the decision, acquired them, and said, "Hey, we need our own streaming service," which made sense at the time. But I don't really think it was going to be core to their long-term strategy because the guy that was running it, Kevin Mayer, Myhar, I think that's how you pronounce his name. He left recently and tried to go over to TikTok. You see how well that worked out. But he built this whole thing out, the streaming. They had a strategy for it. And they said, well, if we, I think the predictions initially was like, hey, if we just get to 50 million in next, 3 to 5 years, we'll be good, right? I mean, I think they ended the year with like close to like about 85 million subscribers in 1 year. It's crazy. That's
Yeah,
unheard of. And relative to Netflix 200 million. So Disney's coming hard. I mean, and it kind of made sense. I mean, as a family guy, I kind of get it because it was like, what else? I need content. YouTube's not going to hack it all the time for the kids, so you know,
and
I'll
it's
plug down my 699.
yeah, and it's heavily branded, and that's very attractive for people who are watching. Netflix kind of requires you to really ask around, hey, what's this? This is new. I don't know what that is. Wait, the Queen's Gambit. Okay, should I be watching this? Okay, is it the right audience for me? Hey, what's this thing? Big Mouth. Okay, that may not be for you or every kid. It's just kind of different. Um, so I was really interested to see how Disney played out with this really strong branded thing with what is it? Star Wars, Marvel, classic Disney, National Geographic, and Pixar. Those are their five main pillars that you see right when you go in the app. So um, it's just they really knocked it out of the park with that.
Yeah, they definitely did. So, we look at the competition. I mean, so Warner Brothers basically announced not too long ago, actually, that hey, we're just putting everything on streaming, baby. So it's a streaming world, man, once again. And but their unique thing was Warner Brothers had the slate of 2020 movies they were going to release, and they decided to just um, and concurrently release them on streaming for 30 days, right? And with the first one being Wonder Woman 1984, which we'll probably talk about a little bit later. But I think that was huge. I mean, it was a big hubbub. First of all, it was exciting news, and then it kind of slowly shifted this whole, the creators are mad, right? You got Christopher Nolan, pretty much the maker of Tenet, which basically Warner Brothers did him a favor and said, "Hey, you know what? We'll allow you to release your movie internationally, even though we know it's in the middle of a pandemic. If that's what you want." He basically turned around and said, "You know what? Screw you guys, because guess what? I think you guys are the worst streaming service." So it's kind of like the relationships are burnt because the creators, the directors, the big time actors are kind of upset because in their mind they're thinking they're not going to get their back end because it's tied to a box office performance. So I mean, Warner Brothers, are they messing up their relationships for the future, or is this the way everything's going forward?
Hey, that's I mean, things obviously have changed, and you can't when something like this hits, people will remember it as, hey, you remember that summer where all the actors were really afraid about what was going to go down with theaters and the back end and the profits and the points that they were going to get. Um, but it's like, how fast can you change into a new format, and do you need to change into a new format? um, for from Disney's point of view, how much do they want to really back the theater experience? Do they need to? How much do they care about the theater experience? How much does Netflix really care? Um, these are companies that aren't based in traditional Hollywood. Like AMC cares, Warner Brothers may care a little more, but I don't know, man. It's a cloudy future.
Yeah, definitely. And the executive that made that announcement, he came from Hulu, right? And so he
Hmm.
understands streaming. He understands, we got to shake things up. But you're right. Warner Brothers, I think, was one of the first, major motion picture studios, right, in the early 1900s. And so, that's what they built their business on: relationships and movie making. So, for them to just say, screw you, Christopher Nolan, and the horse you rode in, it's kind of like, wow, this is. New world we're facing. But I'm excited. I think and we'll talk about a little bit in our predictions for 2021 maybe next week. But I'm really excited about what the future could hold for cinema, because let's be honest, the theater experience has not improved at all. Really, I mean, yes, you get some seat movement, right? You can put your feet up a little bit more, but beyond that, I think this is going to push movie theaters to think a little bit differently about their brand going forward. So we'll see. Moving on. So one of the things that happened so if we go to the early days of the pandemic, But let's talk about some successes. So, this versus format is not really pop culture, but it is in the music genre. And, you had Swiss Beats and Timberland, right? Kind of creating the first one, which was a format they put on Instagram where they kind of, shared their hits and kind of combat one another. And people would chat and, kind of listen to the music and dance to it because they couldn't go to clubs anymore because they were shut down. It exploded. I mean, we have versus formats, from R&B artists, gospel artists, everybody in between. And so I think, will we see more of that, right? This whole kind of, using social media, streaming, social media platforms to kind of have celebrities kind of do different things on it. What are your thoughts?
Oh yeah, man. The the game changed a long time ago, and I don't think it had been realized in a lot of different ways, in a real sense, from companies and developing partners like Timbaland and Swizz Beats. And what I mean by that is, of course, people are out there using technology, but nobody really took what was happening and said, you know what, I'm going to freak it and use the system like this. You'll get and this goes to, the black artistry and black creativity, back from the days of hip hop. You had, Soldier Boy, um, basically doing
Drake? And sorry, everyone. Every time listen to hear Soldier
Drake.
Boy, someone will say Drake.
Yeah, you had Drake innovating with the way he was using his, music cloud to, parlay that into his gaming group, which led into Twitch. We might talk about a little bit later. Um, so you see Timbaland and Swizz Beats. Basically, they kept breaking Instagram with these little beat battles, and this goes back to the, foundations of hip hop, where you've had, somebody in the Bronx had a certain beat, and somebody from Brooklyn had a certain beat, and they would come down with their turntables, their cassette players, and they'd start jamming out and being like, "Hey, who's the best? Who's the best?" That even goes back to jazz and other types of, black musical experiences, battle of the bands in the schools even. So this is nothing new, but the way it's being played out on the on Instagram actually had to change their format to allow for a lot of this stuff to happen. And it's really interesting because it's such a movement that they had to start talking to record companies like, hey, back off a little bit, let this thing grow. We're going to partner up and make some deals, but just let this creativity happen, while it's still building up. And they did. Next thing you know, Versus is doing stuff with Apple Music, and Timbaland's got deals going on, new websites going up about how you can use the internet to, become part of his beat club and everything. It doesn't seem as important when you're just watching two guys play music on a device, but years later from now they'll say, "Oh yeah, this got started because of Versus."
No, I agree. I mean, you have other celebrities, putting things out there. I mean, but it's like the big get bigger, right? And so obviously, got big. You're right. Contracts have to be rethought and thinking through what can be said, what can be promoted. But they made it work because it was money. So, like everything else, and that's kind of, how I think about things. I know that's a little bit more corporate, but think about it. So, they put it out there, they just did it. I'm sure the suits came in. It's like, well, you can't play that. You can't stream that. We don't. But then when they saw the numbers, the suits shut up and said, okay, well, let's how we can make money off of this. And so, like, you're right. You saw Apple Music, and then you had Ciroc, starting to show up, promoting things. Yeah, then the artists themselves had all of a sudden had new music they wanted to promote,
Yeah,
singing, throwing it into the mixes battles. So I was like, I don't remember that, so because it was a new music, and so it was definitely something, to be fair, the big win again, but I would love to see more innovation around that. And so we'll definitely see that. So along the same lines, I think there was a few things that were, that was in the music genre, but then when you look at like other things that were happening, you had watch parties with celebrities watching their old movies and commenting. Do you remember those old DVD commentaries? Like I think there was a Thor watch along with Taki Watiki. I apologize if I say that name wrong, but he definitely had some guest speakers on there talking about different things, and you also had Josh Gad who had like his Reunited Together, where he had like old cast members, right, who would talk about like Goonies, the movies Goonies, or The Hobbit, or Lord of the Rings, Back to the Future, and so basically celebrities were out there just kind of commenting on the stuff that they created, right, on
Yeah.
Zoom meetings, and so the rise of these Zoom calls and interaction with fans really was driving a lot of this when people were in quarantine right now.
Yeah, it's strange because it's one of those things where people have been doing this for a while, like guys on internet boards or some random dude off in Kentucky or Kansas was doing this, having watch-alongs and parties. Suddenly, pandemic hit, the normal pipeline's all screwed up, and then you have celebrities thinking, well, what am I going to do now? Oh, this is hot in the streets. Let me go do this. And to be fair, there are artists who are out there really doing it. Like T Pain, for example, he's always been out there. Um, can't think of any actors right off the bat who are really jumping out there and getting in touch with people. Maybe Mark Hamill a little bit. He's just out there. Um, but but yeah, it's connecting with the people in a way that they weren't before, and suddenly they're like, cracking their knuckles, like, "Hey, I can do this. Get out of the way, you YouTuber. Here comes a real celebrity." So it's interesting little push and pull that's happening right now.
Yeah, I'd be curious to see how long. I mean, obviously when things start to open up, they just don't have the cycles anymore to do these like, YouTube or watch along parties or anything like that. So it'll be interesting, what happens to that, you know, that the whole that was created, because, do they create some kind of content, on set, right? Where people
Yeah.
can kind of listen in and pay to listen in to,
Oh,
what's happening day to day.
oh yeah. I totally forgot about this too. The DC fandom. Um,
Right.
that was an extraordinary Comic Con kind of flip that they did. Comic Con is the big nerd culture event that gets hundreds of thousands of people down in San Diego all crammed together in a tight space. Guess that didn't happen this year. Um, so now, what do you do? Comic Con didn't do too much. They had a little event here, like online. Hey, print out this little PDF and say you were at Comic Con or whatever. But then DC took it to another level, got all their stars together, did panels, did shows, they did reveals. It was pretty entertaining. So and let everybody know once again, hey, we have the technology. This can be done. Big move by them. So I want to see how that plays out in the future too.
No, I agree. Yeah, that was a great event. I mean, I think the Woman panel and some other panels. Definitely, the format was a lot more interactive than the one that Comic Con came up together with for virtually. So it was definitely exciting, and so they drove that. I'd be curious to see, how did that do for them, and so I wouldn't be surprised if they do it again. I mean, obviously now with some reorganization happening at Warner or Warner Media. What are they going to do with this whole DC brand? And those kind of trying to thinking through how they want to kind of position things going forward, right? But I would love to kind of see that again because I think it was a great success. I mean, even the TV shows got a lot of great plug and they got a lot of play, and so yeah, let's see more of that. I mean, so we'll see. Then so we'll switch gears a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about the gaming industry. I know you have some experience with that, and so what are some of the things you saw, that was really exciting when it came to this 2020 year?
A lot of gamer dudes out there online. I'm friends with all the gamer people, but at some point, it's like, you know, I hate nerds, nerds hate me, and we get into an argument. This is where my art side comes into play. I start getting in fights with gamer people. So, big things that happened this year. Twitch, I guess you want to call on that. Twitch was pretty much a gamer only kind of thing, but people started looking at the numbers. They're like, "Holy shit! You people watch YouTube videos for like an average of 15 minutes." And then they're really short videos or longer form videos. You get a couple guys like Joe Rogan, maybe. But for the most part, Twitch started clocking in at like hours per day people watching, and it's basically, and it doesn't make sense to people who don't watch it. It's like I'm going to watch somebody play a video game for 6 hours. Are you out of your mind? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. And that's kind of what I said at one point too. But then I remembered back in at Michigan State, when I was in grad school, I remember playing game, and people would just come over, sit on the couch, and watch me play. And we'd be sitting around talking noise, and while I'm playing, and they're like, "Hey, no, 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 go that way. No, come that back this way." Um, Resident Evil, Code
Dude,
Veronica.
yeah, man. I don't know if you remember back at FAMU, someone came over to my apartment one time and they played Resident Evil and went through it in 30 minutes. And it was like five of us just standing there in awe, like, how are you doing this? So,
I
so
remember.
yes, I mean, it's kind of like Twitch just took what people were going to do naturally, took it to the next level. But I agree. What you're saying is, you highlighted. It just evolved beyond that. I think they do now. They have the chess community on there now. They're doing, Twitch watches. You have like folks who are into wrestling. They do Twitch watches, and so it's exploded beyond just, what they, video games, and then the commercials. I mean, I was on it a couple of times. Commercials are like, like normal commercials, but it's with a gaming flair to them, right? It's selling like Cheerios, right? And you see a little Pac-Man, pop out, so it's kind of like it's kind of interesting that the market that they get into.
Yeah, and I got to make a confession. I like having noise go on in the background. So a lot of times I'll just turn on Twitch, and if it's somebody that's kind of interesting with a nice voice, I'll just kind of listen to them. And the only people who are chatting about nothing important with a nice voice, usually they're these young ladies, young girls with low cut tops and everything. It just happens to be a thing on Twitch. So now I'm just sitting there, and there's a whole new category for it called just chatting. It's not like retro games, it's not sports games, it's not first person shooters. There's a just chatting. So what used to be, watching some girl gamer play through a game, and you get her special perspective as a girl in the game industry, which is a weird thing, but it exists. Now I can just go on there, turn it on, and listen to somebody chat away for 2 hours while I'm thinking, yeah, that's great. Tell me more, and they do. So it's stupid, it's dumb, but it's one of the things I find myself just listening to for however long.
Wow, wow, that's amazing. Now,
I say
moving
that
on.
because I say that because I know I'm not the only one. I've been in the stream. I'm like, who is this? Why are they here for this long? Oh my god, it's 45 minutes have gone by already. I don't know what's going on.
Well, look. I mean, economic theory suggests supply and demand. So there must be a tremendous amount of demand for young women speaking low tops, into a microphone. So that's why you have so many out there, and they actually have their own channel. To your point, so hey, look, I get it. So moving on. So Roblox. So well, let's talk about some of the video games, not just Roblox, but they had Animal Crossing, and of course, most recently, Cyberpunk. Some big, interesting things. So I'll talk a little bit about Roblox because obviously I have young children. I mean, that exploded. I mean, that's been around for a while. I think it was like this kind of virtual world created, I think, in the early 2000s, and it's always been around. But with the pandemic and kids out of school and not a lot to do, and they're on their iPads, and parents don't want them on YouTube all the time or just sitting there watching TV. Go do something creative. Go on Roblox. Do something interesting. And then obviously friends got on there, and so they were literally going to go IPO this year, but because the market has been so crazy, they said, wait a minute, we may not be asking for enough for the market because we may be worth way more. And so Roblox is definitely a success. I mean, for the kid community, and I think Wonder Woman and other movies have started to promote on there, like creating their own virtual worlds that look like, the movie sets and things like that, where kids can go play in with their virtual avatars. And so Roblox is definitely a success story from the game industry that I know personally. But I don't know. Do you have any other thoughts on success stories in the video game industry right now?
Do you call a Cyberpunk a success story? I mean, yeah, that's a wild one, man. It's like it came out and then it was so bad. For those of you who don't know, and I assume you know, um, over time they've been releasing games with bugs and minor defects, but it's like, hey, don't worry, you'll download a patch, you'll get the update, it'll probably be okay before anything happens. Man, they released the Cyberpunk game. It had so many bugs, so many problems, so many just inefficient ways of it was just bad. Um, that Sony had to step in, and this has never happened before with the AAA game, where the system publisher Sony says, you know what, stop the presses. We're pulling that game. You can't play it anymore. This is going back to the developers. They're going to fix their shit, and we're gonna wait for them to get their stuff in order. Never happened before. It's crazy.
Yeah, I think the hype preceded the quality of the product, and so I mean, that's interesting. You said never happened before. Basically, recalled a video game that's already out there, and so
Well, no,
have you heard with the?
you remember the Nintendo seal of quality, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, back in the day, Nintendo, and I guess I credit them for this. They put a seal of quality on their games, and they said, "Hey, if it doesn't have the seal of quality, that means it didn't, you know, reach a certain level of um, development perfection, a certain level of rigorous testing that we expect on all of our games." And this is basically to buffer from people creating bootleg games or being like Atari and just creating any old thing and having it come out in the system. So that's what the industry's kind of been following all this time, was like, well, hey, you go buy a game, you can kind of be assured that it's not going to crash. Well, that's out the window now.
Wow. Well, thank you, Cyberpunk. Appreciate it for changing the industry.
Like cyber,
Well,
no.
now, are they? I'm just curious from a business standpoint. Are they? Um, Blaming the pandemic. Oh, you know what? That was another one we didn't talk about. We'll talk about that in a second. Another 2020 thing I just thought about. But are they blaming the pandemic because a lot of the developers and QA testers were remote, or have you heard anything about that? Saying, hey, because of the pandemic, they couldn't test it as quality like we
You know,
normally do.
I'm not even going to listen to. I hadn't even listened to the corporate line. I've been all in the comments and reading all the developers and reviewers, not the developers, the players and the reviewers. And for the most part, they're just like, yeah, this thing was rushed. They tried to make it out for the PS5 and everything, and we know about crunching and rushing to get a game out, but they just took it to another level, and it simply wasn't ready.
Hmm. Well, hey, business 101, man. Quality and marketing, we gotta, figure out the best angle to go after. So, the other story that we forgot to mention was Quibi. Quibi launched and stopped. It was quit, finished, within what, couple months. I mean, so it was a big old hype thing that happened around, I think, Super Bowl, or even before the Super Bowl. Like, these are gonna be these small 15-minute, kind of shows, movies, whatever, content, quality content from creators you love, like, The Rock, Kevin Hart, name big names. But they were going to make it, look like, fit the form factor of your phone. So
So,
it was huge, huge announcement. And what happened? What
oh,
happened, Ben?
what happened? I was going to ask you that. See, you're the business corporate guy. This is where I get into arguments with the business and corporate side of things, because something sounds good on paper, and the creators are like, well, wait, hold up. Who's asking for this? Who wants this? Who wants to even build this? And you have a bunch of corporate types running off like, no, 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 trust me, it'll be great. And it wasn't great.
Well, the creators of it had a lot of relationships in Hollywood, a lot of interesting, relationships that they thought they could leverage, right, to create, a new interesting format. And I see where they were kind of going with it. They said, well, look, most people are going to watch, they're watching these shows on the phone anyway, right? Why not create content that's specifically made for the phone, right? And to be fair, there were some great content creators who created content specifically for, like, I think Steven Soderbergh, he made a show, right, that was unique at how you held the phone, right? If you change it from horizontal to vertical, you got a
Right. Right.
different aspect of the story. But he's always doing some interesting things, right? And then some creators, they made their so from a business standpoint, they made their contracts very creative friendly. So basically, Quibi never owned it, didn't really own the content. The content was owned by the creators. So if it didn't work for Quibi, they could just take it back and go sell it to Netflix, right, in a couple of years. So that was, the interesting thing there too.
I didn't know that.
So yeah, so it was kind of like, well, they could be like, well, we could do anything with this if we want. The Quibi was leveraging the relationships they had to just put all this content out. Now the theory was, just like anything, like Netflix with, Orange is the New Black or House of Cards, or HBO Max maybe with this new show, The Flight Attendant, or even, Wonder Woman. If you get a hit, right, then it doesn't matter, right, what you do, right, or what you, as long as people are watching it, they love it, you have a chance to kind of grow something, right? And so,
Well,
but
yeah, that's
Quibi never had Quibi probably didn't really have the best quality because, to be fair, probably the content creators like, I give you my CD idea, right? But I'm taking my AB idea to
true.
Apple and to Netflix because you guess what? They got bigger pockets. So I think that's what they got. A lot of C&D content from, high quality, got names, but I'm not taking my AB ideal to you, right? For what? I mean, this is something to try. If it hits, it hits. If it doesn't,
Yeah.
moving
So
on.
yeah, that's I hear you. I hear you. And I wonder about. I still wonder about it because as a designer, I'm sitting here thinking of different ways that you could play out this handheld small format kind of idea. Um, take bring it back to a 5 minute show and basically structure a story where you get 5 minutes um, or 15 minutes every morning at whatever time. So let's say you're on a commute on the bus, or you're waiting at a bagel stand or whatever. You just watch a quick little episode, a quick bite. That's where the name came from. And you go about your business. What is a 10-minute episode format? I don't know. Star Wars had their really short the Clone Wars animated by the Powerpuff guy. They had that, and that was a really quick format, and that showed up as almost a commercial between two other shows. But that whole format needs to be developed and pushed out to the audience in a way that they understand. From the audience's point of view, as far as I could tell, it was just like, um, I got Netflix. I got the Netflix app on my phone. Why do I need Quibi? What are you talking about? Get out of my face. I mean, it just didn't make sense to a lot of people. So,
Well,
you know,
yeah, and I also think, I mean, they had something, like Quibi called YouTube, right? I mean,
oh
small
yeah,
form factor bits that people could go to and watch anything they want for like 10, 15 minutes at a time, right? So, so from a content form factor, let's think about it strategy wise. Content form factor, there was already, they saw a market there, but it was enough to fulfill what people wanted. And then to your point, the higher end stuff, they already had someone fulfilling that. So how are you going to fit in the middle there, right? You didn't have the best quality, right, like a Netflix or Hulu or whatever. But then also people already had the 10 to 15 minute hits. So it's kind of like you're in this middle range where it's like, you kind of like what's was it either the hot or cold. If you're in the middle, people spit you out because it's, they don't know what you are. So I think from a strategy standpoint, they probably thought that the relationship's enough. They thought just having names would be enough, but it's really about what is the good content, right? I mean, and I think that's what we all learned. And then because they raised so much money, I think they raised like $2 billion. But for $2 billion, I think in the first couple of weeks they only had maybe a couple million downloads. I mean, so it's kind of like, and that's basically given away for free. It
yeah,
was just DOA, right? And they saw the number, they saw the writing on the wall. It's like we had to at least get about 20 million downloads for free, right? Just to try it out. But it was no compelling reason, to your point, to want to drive to like, switch from content. I'm already spending time on YouTube, and then and I'm already spending time on Netflix, and then all the other stuff in between Twitch, TikTok, all this other stuff. I don't see a point in having another content, unless there was some compelling reason they didn't give you one. So, it went down in flames.
yeah. No
So
filler. no killer app, as we used to call it.
Yeah, I think that's what it was. I mean, if they had something, I don't know, maybe a new Star Wars show, or I don't know, for instance, which brings us back to what we started from the beginning. Disney Plus launched of a Star Wars show. Let's be honest, and so that kind of helps, Disney Plus get at least of interest, right, to get people to want to download it. Yes, it was content. They had a good, a backlog, but that initial spark was that hey, this is some first live action Star Wars. That was that hook. I don't think Quibi ever had that. So anyway, so that's all we have for year in review. It's a crazy year. I mean, definitely
Hey, wait, I got a
hope for
quick
the
question.
best.
I got a quick
Sure.
question. Speaking of the year in review, did you get a PS5 or an Xbox?
I did not. I'm not a big gamer like I used to be, so I have not. I heard they're either hard to get by or you can buy them, but they're like 60% markup right now. So
Yeah, it's kind of out of control. And it was just interesting because that has no, those systems have no killer app, aside from different types of online connectivity and features that are interesting, but not like app heavy. I mean, PS5 is talking about, oh, you got to play Demon Souls, and it's like, hey, bro, isn't that a remake? I mean, a remake can't be a killer app, man. You need like a Street Fighter was for the SNES. You need a Battle Arena Toshinden like you had for the PlayStation, or Tetris for the Game Boy, or Code Veronica for the Dreamcast. Um, but it apparently seems to be working without one, so people are buying them.
so you think they're the strategy they're going after is looking at scarcity, say you can't get one, so that's why you want one, right? So it's kind of like, is that, the strategy for PS5? I mean, is it really that much of a, 10x improvement over, PS4? I mean, or is it, is it just more of a marketing spin? Look, you want one and you can't get one unless you know somebody, right? Or can pay for it. What do you think is driving the demand right now?
Yeah, every year we need a little something to get hyped over and something to get, and somehow that's become the PlayStation 5, or the new Xbox. And and yeah, I mean, fixing a lot of the problems with playing online, fixing a lot of the controller issues, the display issues, or whatever. That's all very well, nice and neat, but that's something you only used to see computer guys do, where it's like, oh yeah, you got the new, Celeron, AMD, uh, Pentium, Ginormatron, whatever processor, and that's something PC nerds used to do. But that was PC nerds, and I'm not going to try to explain those guys. But now it's like you're doing that with a gaming console, and you're not really pushing a game. So I'm not mad at it. It's just very interesting to me that they were able to pull this. I don't know how many times you can do this, um, in successive years without having a major app or a major reason to get that kind of buzz going on. But for right now, it's working. So I'm all for
Hmm.
it.
So they leverage, hey, this is the most advanced console gaming system around, and that's why you need to get it, and so created this FOMO, fear of missing out. And so and then definitely there's some future proofing in there, saying, hey, you buy this, then you'll be ready for the that next game, that next excellent game that you can stream online, right? Because our system processor handles it better than anyone else. So I see what you're saying. You're saying they're like selling, which is a great marketing spin, right? They're selling the hype of what it could be, right? It's like, here's a white box. There's nothing in there, right? But guess imagine what's in there, right? Just imagine,
Bruh,
it could be
bruh,
anything.
bruh. You can play all them old games perfectly. All the old games it's going to be great. But no one stopped to ask. Well, yeah, why don't I just stay where I am then? Because you ain't got new games. You got Demon Souls remakes. It's brilliant. I'm watching it happen. It's brilliant.
Marketing 101, man. So yeah, so we'll see, man. It's gonna be interesting. So it's kind of interesting, yeah. So you got one Quibi who was selling something, not really having a killer app and going down in flames, and you got something that doesn't have the killer app, and they're looking like they're succeeding. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be interesting to see how this works out. So over the next, couple of I mean, don't underestimate anything new, right? I mean, but if you think of from a marketing standpoint, their positioning, the most advanced console does make sense because obviously, gamers are looking now with Twitch. I mean, we just talked about it, right? Twitch is accelerating. People want to highlight, they have the best system as they're showcasing everything they're doing. So there is a market for having the best systems now, right? If you're a
Well, yeah,
Twitch streamer,
yeah, exactly. And that kind of goes back to my PC point. And I don't know how intentional this was as they were developing this system, but now, I mean, think about it. You're playing a game, and all of a sudden, boom, you just want to start streaming it. You're connected. I mean, your systems are connected to Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, just directly. So you could just Bing hit the button, Bing, you just hit the button and start up immediately, and you're streaming. You're connected to everybody. That type of connectivity is entertaining in itself, and it does bring that fear of missing out because if all my friends are connected and doing it this way and I'm not, then I'm the sucker. You know,
yep,
so
yeah.
there is a lot there.
And I guarantee there's some Twitch users who have it now, and I'm sure their streams have went up a little significantly, right? Because now they have this new box they can highlight. Look how cool this is. Look what I can do. I couldn't do before. They're
Yeah.
probably posting more often because it's easier to post. So I think with them, they probably had the market understood well enough. Like online game is huge. Streamers are huge. It's a flywheel effect. Basically, if we get more Twitch users using PS5, we'll probably sell more, PS5s, right? Because they're promoting it, talking about it, and then more people want it, and then they're going to sell more, and then more Twitch streamers, they're going to talk about it more. So it's like a flywheel account where they're just going to sell more and more. So Quibi didn't have anything like that at all, right? So it's not like there was you bought a Quibi and now I'm going to talk about Quibi that I'm going to get Ben to go watch Quibi, right? It was kind of
Hey,
that,
hey,
that, there was
someone's streaming about Quibi. I'm unsubscribing.
yeah, that was trending, right? That was Quibi on Twitter, right? Right. So no, that was great, man. I think we kind of covered 2020 in a nutshell. So let's move on to the big topic
Whew,
today.
sign off
Dun,
to
dun, dun, dun,
2020.
dun. Yeah, bye 2020. See you later. So let's move on to the big topic of the day, the week really. So the two movies were released recently on streamers. Soul, which is the new Disney Pixar movie, was released, as well as Wonder Woman 84, which was released on HBO Max, which we kind of hinted at many times before. So let's talk a little bit on the business side, and we'll get into like were these movies any good, right? And so on the business side, we saw that Wonder Woman box office numbers. So what happened with Wonder Woman 84? Uh, HBO Max's new strategy, Warner Brothers' new strategy, is to release these movies the same day on streaming for 30 days as they do out into theatrical release, and so internationally and domestically. So we saw the Wonder Woman box office numbers were at 85 million, and domestically they saw about 67 million. You know, and that's really was the highest the pandemic, right, for opening weekend. But obviously, it was 84% lower than the first Wonder Woman, right?
That's actually
Uh,
pretty. That sounds pretty good. It's pretty good, right?
yeah,
For
that's pretty good for the pandemic. I mean, granted, people are off and may brave it a little bit more. Younger kids have more time to kind of go see it. But yeah, it's pretty good. I mean,
are
relatively speaking.
are these numbers merging the box office and the streaming?
No, just basically from Deadline. They're just basically box office numbers, not streaming, because obviously streamers don't really reveal their numbers too much, right? Or they come up with some archaic some asinine type metrics. Like I think Netflix metric is like if you view like 3 minutes of their show, then that counts as a stream. And it's like, what are you talking about? I may have fell asleep you know, and saw 8 episodes, and now you're gonna count that as a stream, right? So we really don't know what their secret sauce is, which but it's getting different. You can see. I mean, we're kind of going on a tangent here, but you can see, like that's why Netflix kind of released their top 10. Go top Netflix, they have like their top 10 stories, movies, and TV shows that they highlight, and
Yeah.
no one knows what that means. What does top 10 mean, right? Now, mysteriously, every time, the majority, I would say about 8 of the 10 are Netflix original shows. So it's kind of interesting what makes the
Amazing.
top 10. Yeah, amazing. I wonder how that works out. But no, they don't tell you where that top 10 comes from. What does it mean? Does it mean like the number one stream? Nah, we don't. But anyway, so going back to the numbers, I think these are just real numbers. People paid going to the theater, 16.7 million, and I think on average for the last couple of weeks is or last couple of months really, the average has been roughly about 4 to 5 million opening day for the top movie. So yeah, 16.7 domestically is huge, and so that's definitely great for them. And then Seoul international movie numbers for about 7.6 million. So make a long story short, I mean, not great, but we knew that was going to happen. So, question is, I think what I'm going to be looking for is to see how, what's the long term projections, what's going to be considered a success, right, for Wonder Woman 84. Is it going to be, huge box office numbers or streaming numbers, or they're going to try to mash up both? I think Warner Brothers is probably going to try to figure out some kind of way to kind of mash up both with some, crazy metric. Oh, this is the number of folks that were exposed to our movie on the opening weekend, right? It was 100 million. Now that includes, streaming people, people who went to go see box office, people
Yeah.
internationally, but they'll figure out some kind of way to make this a success. So that's the challenge with streaming numbers. You just never really know what they mean. But
Mm.
so make a long story short, I think the jury's still out. That is this the future, or HBO Max is still going to be committed to these releases for 2021, like Dune, some of the bigger ones like Dune. What's the other one? Suicide Squad. That's going to be interesting to see if that's going to get released. There were some other big ones that are coming out, like um, are they really going to release these big blockbuster movies on streaming only? So, or streaming initially, right, for the first 30 days. So, Wonder Woman is a test case, but you gotta give Warner. I mean, one last thing, I'll leave it on the numbers things. You gotta give them credit. They tried releasing a blockbuster during the pandemic, Tenet, right? And
Mhm.
we saw how that did. I mean, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was like, I think it was like 300, 400 million, close to 400 million overall, which, is not bad. Now, granted, his last movies did, around 500, 600 million. So, could have done better. Now they did something kind of both. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Ben, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, what do you think the projections say, and what do you think the future holds for both of these?
So I think we're going to see what happened in the music industry, and that's basically the destruction of the megastar, the blockbuster hits. Um, and maybe you can make that parallel with the Star Wars movies as well. You know what I mean? It's like going from a large, huge property to a smaller property. So we'll see what that means. I know with Wonder Woman, definitely I picked up the whole HBO Max package because of Wonder Woman. So that makes it a big deal for me. But in the future, these streaming apps, they separate things out, and they don't. Well, I say separate. They they make it less necessary to have this one big tentpole property, and you can have a bunch of little ones. And we've seen that happen with Netflix, and we're now starting to see it with Disney Plus. So I think that's the ramification that's happening there. Sorry, Mr. Nolan.
No, I agree. It's going to be interesting to see, and I'm excited to see what the numbers. I'm guaranteed they're gonna, put some spin on this as a success, and
They're
so,
not as well.
but let's talk about it. So let's talk about Wonder Woman first, right? Definitely from a story standpoint. Uh, I mean, some spoiler review here. I mean, so if you haven't seen it, stop here right now. We'll probably get into some spoilers, but Wonder Woman. I'll say this: yeah, I thought it was a good movie. I thought it was something that I thought, I would say this. I think their aspiration maybe exceeded their grasp. Right? You could tell they were Patty Jenkins and the rest of the crew were going for something. The whole
Yeah.
Superman, the 1978 movie, like, that whole mall scene at the beginning that kind of evoked that feeling of like Superman, right? Like when, oh wow, it's just kooky stuff happening, right? And we got a superhero helping out, doing things. And what are they doing? And that, but that that really, worked with that 1984 motif they were going for. That kind of cheesy, over the top, kind of big hair, kind of stylistic choices they were going for. So I get what they were doing there. Um, and then so that's the one thing, the style, and the whole, what they were trying to emulate. And then maybe, a little bit about, her journey from a character, right? It wasn't more I gotta fight the bad guy, but I gotta fight internally what I want so that I can convince everyone else to do the right thing as well. And so I thought, like, wow, I mean, it was deep, they're trying to do, but I think the storytelling got muddled there
Yeah,
because the mechanics to get to that plot point was kind of it wasn't clear. I had to
yeah.
watch it,
I kind of
second time
agree.
to
I mean,
understand like,
I thought
why
it
did
was
she have to
fine.
do
First
that?
of
What
all,
happened
I'm not
here?
one of these
And we'll
guys.
get into more specifics in a second,
There are
but
very
that's
few
kind of the two things that I caught
egregious
from the stylistic choices
failures that
and
will
then
just
the
have
plot
me,
mechanics,
screaming at
right?
the
Those
top
are
of
the
my
things that kind
lungs.
of took me out a little bit.
And I don't even mention those anymore. But yeah, it was a fine movie. But I think they tried to, and people are trying to mess with the hero format, and it's the format for a reason. You have the whole hero's journey thing, and there were so many subtleties played out. Like, hey, this person's my son. This person's that guy's friend. This person's coming back. Do I let go? Do I hold on? Are we friends? Are we enemies? Are we frenemies? There were so many little subtle things. My head was kind of going, okay, that's all good and fine, but where's the bad guy? Where's the dun dun dun? Where's the guy who comes in? All right, 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 right. So yeah, it's just some people call that stuff hokey, but it's the language of a movie, and you can use that to get your point across
Bad
very
guy, the
quickly,
bad
and
guys are
then get
feelings,
deep on it,
Ben.
or
That was the
then
bad guy.
throw in all these extra subtleties. As I said, the movie wasn't bad, but when I saw that it clocked in at 2.5 hours, and it really didn't um, give me any kind of I thought to myself, what would I have taken out? And I'm like, I really wouldn't have taken out much of anything because it's all kind of necessary for the story they told. But that brings me to the point: the story they told wasn't that uh, compelling as a hero story, as an emotion story, as a family story, as a friend story, as a love story. It was just kind of tepid on all marks, but it wasn't bad. It was just something to sit through and like, hey, this is pretty cool, and go through it. I'm not mad at it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I mean, I kind of get what she was trying to do too. I mean, think about this is really the first, lead woman superhero that we see on the big screen, right? And so certain subtle things that she did around, like, I mean, people are commenting that she did not, really punch, right? She was all defense, right? Or she would, I think there was a scene where she took took the wheel off of a truck and said, "You use your brake," right? I mean, she was just very considerate while she was, stopping everyone from, with her strength and her speed, and so I thought
If
that
you want
was,
to answer
and
that
I think,
question,
they were trying to.
watch
The
Flash
ambition
on the
was,
CW.
what would
He's so
a woman
nice and
superhero? How would
considerate.
she,
You just want to give that guy a
deal
cupcake
with
or a
these
muffin.
problems as opposed to
It's lovely.
Batman and
Um,
Superman, right? Just start
so it
punching
has
and
been
doing
done
stuff, right?
before,
And then
but
so
yeah,
I see
playing it
the
up to this
intention
big
there.
Hollywood, you're expecting explosions and punches and things. It plays out differently, and Patty Jenkins has another one. They already announced another one. Um, 2 days after the Wonder Woman 84 got released. 2 days after they announced the other one, so we'll be fine. Mhm.
Yeah. And well, so let's talk about I mean, DC, what's it called? The DC cinematic universe, right? I mean, obviously they kind of gave up on that, I think, when it comes to comparison to Marvel, from their strategy standpoint. I think for good and bad, right? I think, their movies tend to be a little
Mhm.
bit better. Let's be honest. Joker. I mean, we didn't really talk about that. Came out really when did it come out? 2018, I think. But the Joker movie with Joaquin Phoenix, getting all the Oscar attention, but legitimately being a Batman film because there's Batman in the movie. I was blown away. Like, so they can do that. They can do Aquaman, which is great, wonderful. They did Wonder Woman, and then
Yeah.
now they got this,
Hey, that
re-release
story
of
sucks.
Justice League
That
coming
story
out,
sucks.
right, for the
Hey, but did you
fans,
see
right?
the end credits?
The
Oh
Snyder
yeah,
cut.
dog,
So
it's
it's
gonna
kind
be
of
the
like
next movie.
they got
All right,
all
so
these different buckets that don't really interconnect. Like you got Marvel, because Marvel is like kind of like Pokemon strategy, right? You got to catch them all, got to see them all, right, to make it sense. And so it's kind of like what exactly. Well, and well,
Black
I ain't
Widow.
gotta let you go, but that makes my questions like, well, so they're gonna have Wanda coming out next couple of weeks, right? Then we gotta wait to freaking the first movie's not coming out till like maybe May, June with what's her name? The Black Widow. So it's how's that gonna connect? I mean, so we gotta watch this, and they're gonna have a little spot here. So I mean, I'm sure they're
As I
gonna make
said,
it,
man, the
work
whole
some
point
kind of
is
way.
just to have
But
people
they're gonna have like
tuned
five. What they
into
got 10
one
different
basic
TV
stream,
shows coming out, and
and you
then they're
don't
gonna have all
stray
these
too far
movies.
from it.
They're gonna try to
Um,
intertwine all
I
this
think we
together.
missed that a little bit in the
I
last
don't know,
show.
man. It's gonna
If
be
I
a
can
tough
get people to
thread to
watch
get
one of
through.
these shows, and then that connects them to another show, after a little while, they're gonna be tired and not even feel like going to jump to another service or, yeah, I don't even want to pick up on Doom Patrol or the Titans because that's just a whole nother set of stories. And I'm like, hey, Doom Patrol stands on its own. It's weird and interesting, but it's good. You should watch it. And they're like, I'll just watch Iron Fist just because it's part of the Marvel universe or whatever. And I'm like, all right, man, don't do that. Sorry that it came down to this, but
Don't do that. Well, we'll see. I mean, I think, I mean, good shows are good shows. I mean, we'll talk about another show that came on people's radar last year that no one thought about that was based on a 1980s, another 1980s kind of format. And it exploded, right? But if you got good content, it doesn't matter what show it is. So my argument is, I say what Wonder Woman is fine, DC strategy is fine for the future as long as they good, create good content, and I think their stories can be, more invigorating, right, more interesting than maybe Marvel's template, right? And so it'll be interesting to see if this Marvel strategy of got to catch them all, right, got to watch them all,
yeah,
will kind of work in this, a movie fine, 3 movies a year fine, but now you gotta watch what 10 episodes of a series to kind of understand everything. That's a big commitment, 10
that's
hours,
that's
but now you gotta watch
that's part
30
of the
hours,
no, it
three
doesn't,
three
man.
three
I don't think
new
so.
shows, right?
I
30
think if
hours,
people are just kind of
maybe two
lazy
new
and they're like,
movies, that's
"Hey,
another six
dog, who's that
hours. So you're
guy?"
talking about
That's the
40
raccoon
hours
from Guardians
of
of the
your
Galaxy.
of your
Okay,
year
I guess I'll watch that next.
devoted to
It's
Marvel. The content's got
it's
to
the
be
old
great.
comic book strategy, man. It's like some Joker will show up from in a Spider-Man comic, and it's like, "Hey, bub, who are you?" It's like Wolverine in a Spider-Man comic. Oh, I guess I'll go read X-Men now. It's just it's just lowering that entry. Sure.
Wolverine was a compelling character in of himself, right? And so, I mean, I get what you're saying. So, because the test will be also, you know, um, Star Wars. I mean, they got all these new spinoffs coming off of Mandalorian, and the next one is going to be Boba Fett, which is probably nostalgia, and so that probably do great. But this Rangers, right? This new Rangers show, right? Is that going to be great? I mean, do we really want to see these new characters in their own show, without Mandalorians running around? So that's going to be interesting. I mean, so it's kind of like, I get what you're saying. So people get lazy, say, I'm in this world, I'm in Star Wars world, I'm just going to watch
Yeah.
everything. There's complete, what they call them, people who like the complete story and want to be all in. But then there's some people like me, like, this story's boring. I'm out of here, right? And so I just read on YouTube or I'll, get recaps on because tons of recaps. So anyway, so that's my thought. I mean, I get what you're saying though, but yeah. It's too much, man. It's too much. And you got to think too, I'm got other stuff going on and all that, but then, you got, all these other
Yeah.
competing interests. So to sum it all up, I definitely think that Wonder Woman, like you said, we both agree it was an okay movie.
Really
But
quick, one thing that's
DC can
really
have just
interesting is
okay
the is
movies,
checking out
and
the back
you can kind of
catalog.
move on to the next one. The next one
Going
might be
back
great for them.
and trying to
Whereas
watch Marvel
Marvel can,
movies just in any old order is like,
the
what
future
the
for
fuck is
Marvel is
going
more
on?
interconnectedness. We're
I,
going to see
I
how
I
it's going to
plugged
compete
in
with
just like,
DC in the future.
oh, Iron Man 2, then Iron Man 3, and all of a sudden they have all these references jumping in between, and I'm like, whoa, 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 what the hell is this? And it confused me, and I was like, holy shit, this is what the old girl, was talking about when I asked her about, watching movies. She came in late and tried to pick up on this and that and said she was just confused and didn't know what was going on. And I wonder about that effect on the back catalog. Like, how easy is it to go back and rewatch all these? So I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, so then the next movie that came out was Soul, Pixar's latest, by the same director who did Inside Out animation. Great movie, Inside Out. Not gonna say I cried, but brought my daughter with me. But
Wait,
it was a
Soul,
great
wait,
movie,
hold on.
and
Soul tried to do something very
definitely
similar to what?
about
Okay.
childhood emotions and what creates those emotions and all that kind of stuff. Very, very detailed movie from a psychological standpoint, and I think they try to do something very similar to Soul. And so to Inside Out. Yeah, yeah, using understandings of psychology and other things to kind of explain the metaphysical, right? Or in Soul's case, but in Inside Out's case, is more psychological, right? They try to use cutesy little cartoon figures, right, to explain your feelings, right? And so
Um,
I think Soul.
Here's the
So number
thing. I
one,
think it checks all the
do we
marks
think it was
that
great?
most people
Story.
say.
Number
Was
two,
it an
did it
engaging
succeed in
story?
really
Yes.
helping to
What
flesh
did
out
was it did it was it
the
beautiful? Did it
world
look
and
good?
basically
Yes.
explain some
Was
of the
it
more bigger
a fun
questions we all
time
have.
for adults and kids? Yes. Charming, funny, looked good, all that. It's classic Pixar quality, and yet still I have problems with it. Why? What am I nitpicking? I don't know. But when I saw this, I was like, yo, this dude was so intent on being the magical Negro in this show that he went to like another plane of existence to help this you know I suppose you've seen it now. I don't know if you have or have not, but spoiler here. He's talking to this soul and he's trying to help out what's a bucktooth white woman. And when you see it, it'll make sense. But then everybody's like, uh I forgot her name. It was right, right. But they actually said that in the movie, well, not Bucktooth, but they said the white woman
What
part, and
was she named
she
Karen?
immediately said, "No,
Was
no,
she
no.
named Karen?
I'm not necessarily a white woman. It's just how you perceive
No,
me
I'm just saying
in, your mind or
that's the
whatever."
meme,
And
Karen.
everybody was
But
like, oh, "Okay, that's the explanation." I threw my hands up and was like, "Wait a minute. You're telling me he's going through all this and he does that because he subconsciously or something wants to help an older white woman?" It was just kind of weird to me. So it wasn't bad at all, but that part was really weird and I'm like, why did this play out again in this way? And then later on they do the body swap, so now he's not even in his own body. Um and no one who listened to him before, they start listening to him now, but it's not his voice. So it's like they took away his voice and gave it to what they called a white lady, and he's in there just winning people's hearts over and doing everything and like, hey man, you never talked to me before, and it's like that's because I'm a white lady. It just seemed weird to me the way they played it out. So
Ooh. Ouch. No, that's very good commentary on that one. That's hot take right there. I mean, obviously, animation takes a little bit longer to create than and the story's already built out over years, right? I think they started working on this what 5, 6 years ago or something like that. So we're obviously in a new place now. Unfortunately, due to some of the things that happened during the summertime, and so it's kind of like I think the story is probably baked in place and they didn't think anything about it. But I don't even know for the promotional, the young the voice actor who does the young white lady, if you for lack of a better term, she is played by Tina Fey. I don't think I saw Tina Fey out there promoting it at all. So it's kind of like they put a lot of like Jamie Foxx was a voice character, Daveed Diggs, Angela Bassett. I saw a lot of their faces out there. But yeah, I think and maybe we'll talk about that more on this podcast. I mean, the intersection of race and these pop culture discussions. I mean, I think filmmakers have to be a little bit more intentional about they bringing in black characters, and I think they try to pigeonhole some stuff in there, like with the whole haircutting scene, and he said things like, "Oh, after you take a shower, put some lotion on me," things like that. When they had swap bodies and stuff like that. So they try to do a few things, but you're right. Just because you put a little frosting on a shit cake, it's still gonna be shit cake, right? So it's kind of like it was baked into the cake already, so it's kind of hard to sweeten it up a little bit. So I mean,
Mhm.
so my take on it, real quick, and I'll let you get back to it. Is my I was watching with my kids. I mean, I took the lessons out of it, about enjoying life. Obviously,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
becoming. There was a scene where a character can become a lost soul and they have a lot of negative talk in their head. And so just, explain to the kids about, why that's important to not have negative thoughts. So to me, I try to take the lessons out of it, and try to apply it to kids and stuff. But you're right, the underlining thing, because my wife even was watching it, she was watching it, right? They had the scene with the black guy. He was music teacher. Oh, this is cool. And then she was like, then he went to heaven or going to heaven. She's like, what the hell is this? She was like, oh, this took me out of it. I don't know. This is garbage.
Yeah, I mean, as I said,
Like, why you gotta be
people
a little
people
white
are
ghost?
so
And so,
so
so it was
one
kind of
side
one of
or the
those
other.
things
It's
where
like
she was
hate it
just
or
like
love it,
out
and it's
after
like,
that. But
you know what?
she
It's a little
watched it,
more
but it was
nuanced than that.
still
It's
like,
fine, watch it with your
she was
kids,
really
have
into it
fun with
first.
it,
But
but
so
just
that's my
realize
take
that
on
they
it.
fell into some you know, old hokey doke kind of stuff. It's like, oh, come on, this is like, as I said, going into another dimension so I can save just one more. Oh, let me save. I know, and that was weird because at the end they were trying to wrap up what's the difference between that spark and
And
your
no one else
purpose,
can save
and
her
I was
but
like,
me.
holy
No
crap!
one else.
This
Abraham
guy's
Lincoln,
purpose
Mother
is to go
Teresa,
out and be Captain Save 'em,
just me.
I was, that, come on, dog.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and like
And then, yeah,
all
and then,
the deities, whatever you want to call
big
those
spoiler
guys,
alert. I
they were
mean,
just like,
I thought he would
you
just
know
been
what?
happy. Okay, I had a good life and
We
just
back
kind
this
of move
whole
on. They
Captain
said, nope,
Save
you
'em
get
thing
another
you've got
chance to
going
be
on. We're
mediocre
gonna change
and
the
go keep
rules
saving them.
so
So
you can go
go back
back
to
to
Earth.
saving them. Because
So,
that
Yeah, it was
I
just
need,
so
hey,
it was so
as I
nonchalant.
said,
Well,
some
we never done this
legitimately
before,
funny
but
stuff,
what the
some
hell?
crazy antics. I
Just
love
like
the
you can go
animation,
back,
like when she tried to
go
eat
save some
pizza and
more.
stuff.
You're
Stuff
doing a
like
good
that
job
had me
saving them.
cracking up.
Nah,
It was
yeah, I
comedy. It
mean,
was funny,
so
but I'm not
but
gonna let
like
stuff
I said, it
slide,
was
man.
fine. So
So
9/20/20 or 9/20/21. So Well, hey Ben, I think we're getting close to the end. So
I,
before we go out, so for next week,
hey
we're
man,
probably going to
I've been
talk
all
our
on that
predictions for
show. It's
2021. So
strange, but I love it. We'll get into it.
2021's probably be another wild one like 2020. So we'll see how that goes. And then we're going to talk about a little show called Cobra Kai.
Yeah,
Cobra
yeah.
Kai. Have you been watching that show, Ben? Yeah, it should not work at all, but it does. And so that to me, quality, like I said, quality always comes to the forefront, right? And so it's and who knew a show for those that don't know, Cobra Kai is basically the Karate Kid. Karate Kid was real, and they just took the characters 30 years to the future, and they still have the same personalities and everything. What would they be
Yeah,
like now?
it was a YouTube.
And they
I don't
didn't
want to
even
say
bring in
original, but it was
next generation,
definitely
right?
um,
And it works. And
exclusive to
so
YouTube for
so to
quite a
me,
while. It
quality
just
should
went
win
over
out,
to
when it
Netflix,
comes to content.
and
And
they're gonna have a
so
new season
this is
coming
the
out
case in
on
point because it was,
January
I think,
1st or
originally
something.
on
So
YouTube, right? When it first launched, YouTube Red. Yeah, so maybe we'll watch a couple episodes and then can talk a little bit about. And then we'll be able to stream get all through all of them. But yeah, we'll talk about it more next week. But hey, guys,
peace.
thank you for the time as always. Thank you for listening to Show versus Business. This is your weekly podcast on all things business and podcast related, intersection of both. Thank you for your time. I'm Theo and Mr. Benja. See you next week. Thank you for listening to Show versus Business, your weekly take on pop culture. Please subscribe to this podcast at Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever else you listen to podcasts. Please like and subscribe to our Instagram page, Show versus Business, to get exclusive behind the scenes takes and upcoming episodes. Talk to you next time.
Finish him!